Welcome everybody that's coming on if you're watching video, because here we are. This is one of my great friends, Megan. And I was just thinking about before, or when I asked you to do this, I was trying to think how we connected. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think we were on Facebook for a really long time, but our mutual, like one of my best friends, Teresa Lewis. I don't know if that's how we connected, but you and I were on Facebook friends for a long time. Still don't know how we met.
I think I saw your post on her timeline, like we were wishing her a happy birthday.
Yes, or something. I don't remember.
And she is like saying all these amazing things, and I should look at what she's doing. And then like this relationship happened. So
yeah, I know, because you were on my podcast years ago, and then we finally met in person when I was home in Michigan. I don't even know how long ago that was way before the pandemic. So it was like 3-4 years ago.
And I found out that I could like fit you in my pocket.
I'm so short. So short.
Story of my life when I meet people like this, and I'm always like, oh yeah, and then I meet them in person. I'm like, so if you didn't realize, like, I'm a giant. So there's that.
And then you were with me and Teresa, and Teresa's my height. Like we're like, I'm 4'11", she's 5 foot. So yeah.
Two just tiny, like pocket-sized friends.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, hey, you were the very first person that I thought about launching this podcast. And as you know, like you and I have talked about me launching this brand. And I mean, I know we talked before that, but you've been such a grounding space for me with redesigning my life. And so you were the very first person that I thought about when I was launching this podcast. And your life has so much meaning, and it has so much power for me, from like what you've been through and what you're doing, and how you've just taken what you were given and overpowered and persevered and turned it into something so amazing. So I was hoping that we could start by you sharing a little bit of your story.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much. You have gone through so much, and to be sitting here with you, watching you fulfill the things that you've been talking to me about, I'm just so very proud of you and excited to see where all of this takes you. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, my name is Megan Fenyoe. I am a veteran and a licensed mental health therapist. I'm originally from Michigan, Grand Rapids, but I now live in San Diego. Woo-hoo. And I'm also the CEO and founder of the international I Am Enough movement, and a 2-time best-selling author. And even though I've been a therapist for close to 17 years, in 2013, I found myself in a very narcissistic, abusive marriage. And again, being a therapist just goes to show you that this type of abuse can happen to anyone, any age, it doesn't matter. And he had an affair for 14 months of our 2.5-year marriage. And in that time, I lost every sense of who I was. He was very narcissistic. And I'm very careful about using that word, because I feel like in today's society, that word is just thrown out, like just put out there. But it wasn't really until I started writing my first book did I actually realize that it was true narcissism, and the things that he said to me and the things that he did to me. And I lost every sense of who I was. And this resounding story that I created in my head of I'm not good enough literally followed me until I finally walked away from him in 2018. So I walked away from him. I walked away with just my wedding ring and a ton of debt. And also 3 months before walking away from him, I lost my very secure 6-figure job as a therapist in a hospital. So I literally was at ground zero, like breaking point, had no idea what I was going to do, just thought my life was over, couldn't get out of bed. And I just started writing, and that's I never thought I was going to write a book. And that's where my first book came out, and everything just kind of, catapulted from there. And obviously had to do a lot of work myself with my own therapist with the trauma. I have a PTSD diagnosis. I struggle with anxiety. I still have, things that come up for me when it comes to the abuse. It was more emotional, but there was some physical abuse in there as well. And, just having to reprogram my mind and my thoughts to really getting to that point of believing that I'm enough. And I'm sure we'll jump into the movement and all of that stuff, but that's kind of my story. And here I am 4.5 years later, just living life and loving it. So it's been a journey, but it's been such an amazing blessing as well.
Yeah. So did you have, while you were going through all that, did you have people that were by your side that were, did they notice things and you were just
Oh,
like,
yes.
everything is great. You don't know. I mean, not, you don't know what you're talking about, but I think there is some sort of, and you correct me if I'm wrong, like there's some sort of like deep down and looking back, there is like, yeah, I kind of knew that
Oh,
like
yes.
things were off, even though people were telling you, but it was like, what do you feel like was like the defining moment of like you really kind of seeing that? Because I think it can, I mean, like it can go on so long for so
Yeah.
many years.
So I had a lot of people around me, but the thing is when we got divorced, he had filed for divorce 4 times and pulled the papers 4 times. He kicked me out of our house twice. Like, so that is all narcissism, right? Like the discarding, the love bombing, like it was all of it. So when the divorce was final, I was so emotionally broken that I stayed committed to him for another 2 years and didn't even know that he had moved in another girl. And in our house, I never went back to our house. So we would date. He'd come to my place, didn't even know this woman existed. And in those 2 years after the divorce, I started getting more quiet with my friends and my family that I was still talking to him. Again, I didn't realize the scope of it. Like he made me believe that I could not live without him. And the fact that he was still dating me and wanting to get back together. And the last big incident happened when he came down here to San Diego. And that's when I found out about the other girl. And at that point, no one knew that he was there that weekend. And it was physical. And I had bruises all over me. And I kicked him out. And that was the last time I talked to him. And that was it for me. Like one of my best friends flew in from Chicago the day after he left. And she was just like, well, like I hid it from everyone.
Yeah.
And now that, once I started my healing journey, I was hearing from family and friends about how angry I was during those 2 years, like how I just was on edge all the time. I just walked around like I looked happy, but like my intimate relationships were just really affected and I had no clue. So I had to like process that and like go back to family and friends and apologize. And, and they were just like, we knew something was going on. We didn't know the extent of it, but I was just on edge like the whole time. Sorry, there's like a huge fire going on or something. I don't know if you could hear the fire trucks. They're just so loud right now. But yeah, so that for me was really hard to hear, but it goes to show you that when you're in it, you have really no idea. Like you are just trying to survive. And I didn't really realize that I was just trying to survive, but it was affecting every part of, my job, my family, my friends, everything. So that was a big eye opener for me when people were starting to tell me that.
Yeah. And I want to like just bring a little bit of awareness to narcissistic abuse and kind of what that means, because I think there, like, as you said, that word is thrown around often, but kind of unknowing and understanding. And you said something when you were just talking, you said, he made me think, or he made me that. And I think that phrase is something that people will look at you and go, but you're a best-selling author and you're a therapist and you had this and you all this. Come on, you knew better, didn't you?
Right. And that's the thing is his love bombing, and that's part of the narcissism. His love bombing was so manipulative. I mean, we lived in this beautiful, like pretty close to $1 million house. I had a beautiful wedding in Napa. Like we traveled everywhere. It wasn't the money for me. Like I didn't want that big house. I found like a smaller house and it wasn't good enough for him. And, and him like kicking me out of the house and then asking me back and then pulling the divorce papers and then asking me back. Like all of that stuff. Like my ex-husband never said the words, Megan, you are not good enough.
Right.
I created that story in my head that I wasn't good enough based on his actions and his behaviors, his affair, the multiple lies, him calling me insane, delusional, like all of this stuff. Like it was my fault. He blamed me for the affair, saying it was my fault. And so I created that story based on his actions and his behaviors. We create stories, our negative thoughts that we say to ourselves, that's us creating stories based on our experiences and based on what we think of ourselves.
Right.
And so that is where that came from, because again, I didn't realize it. His manipulation was so good. It was so good. So good. I literally thought I was the crazy one. He made me go on meds. He made me think I was crazy. And I started guessing everything about myself. And it wasn't, I think when I learned about the affair, that was kind of when I realized that like, this wasn't right, but I was so deep in it that I just stayed because I literally thought it was my fault.
Yeah. Tell me about what, like guilt, shame, that followed that. So although, you're the one that had gone through that, played like this like puppet with, with strings of, nope, I'm like all this control, but tell me what that was like for you, knowing that you were like this powerful, smart, intelligent, loving, like cheerful, joyful woman that was in this moment of shame and guilt and I'm no longer good. And I mean, also losing your job on top of that. Tell me what it was like for you at that time.
It was so difficult. Like I said, I could not get out of bed. And there was so much shame and guilt. I was so embarrassed. Like I had to go into work like a couple days after he left and I had bruises. I tried to hide them. And it was just like so much like, why did I stay? Why did I stay? Why did I stay? But then like when I got into therapy and that kind of stuff, like the books and all of that stuff didn't come until later. I was just a therapist and I just had to do such like soul searching, and I had to learn to forgive myself because as a survivor, there was nothing I could have done differently. But that shame and guilt, I was so embarrassed. Like the fact that like I went back after the affair was crazy. I mean, I shouldn't have done that. But again, there's a reason why I stayed as long as I did. I don't know if I would be where I'm at today if I didn't. I would wonder if I left after the affair, if I would still question, well, was it my fault, this and that. I needed that one big moment. And so the shame and guilt was difficult. I think writing my book helped because I wrote it. I started it 2 weeks after I walked away from him, and then it published 5 months later. And so that was really a healing journey for me. And again, that was the first time I started talking about it. Like when my book came out, that's when everyone learned. Like I didn't tell anyone except for my close friends and family. And I think that helped me get through the shame and guilt because in my book, the first book, I talk so much about narcissistic abuse. And that's when I realized, when I was writing that book is when I finally realized the scope of what I was involved in. Even though I was in therapy and like she told me, I needed to actually see it in paper while I was writing it. And that really helped kind of move past the shame and guilt. But a lot of it was acceptance and forgiveness on my part for myself.
How did you know, like when you say like, I could barely get out of bed and that's where you were at. It's like, how did you know what you needed to do? Like, how did you was it like it was just in you? It was instinct. It was like somebody told you, hey, you should probably go seek a therapist. I mean, was it because you were one? Like, how did you know, like, this is like one step I have to do? Or were you led to that somehow?
I had been in therapy before, like throughout my years, just because of childhood stuff and that kind of stuff. And I just knew that I was a mess. I mean, I wasn't eating. I was a disaster and I had lost my job on top of that. And so, I just knew that I needed to talk to someone, and I had just moved technically like 8 months earlier to San Diego. So I didn't know a lot of people either. And so I was, starting to stay home more. But going to therapy allowed me to kind of obviously work through my trauma, but then kind of visualize what I wanted to do with my story. And one of the things I talk so much about, one of the things that got me out of bed every morning, there's a YouTube video, and I was scrolling through Facebook one morning and I had to get up to go to work. And Well, because this is after I got my other job, but I got up and I was scrolling through Facebook and I didn't want to get out of bed. And I saw this YouTube video and I play it all the time for my patients. I use it anytime I need motivation. It's a motivational video. And that was my first thing that would get me out of bed in the morning. And then I'm a huge visual person. So whenever I'm going through something, I'm a huge quote person or, you know, words. Like I have so many words tattooed on my body and quotes and that kind of stuff. And I remember I've always loved the phrase, I am enough. It's always just been a thing for me. And that was the resounding theme, that I'm not good enough. And so every morning I would write on a little sticky note. I had a pad right next to my bed. And for the first, I would say month, I wrote, I am enough because I got out of bed this morning. Because that's literally all I believed at that point.
Yeah, right. That's all
I got out of bed.
Yeah.
And as I started writing those things and starting to write my book and going to therapy and just being really authentic and real about my experience, that's when I was able to kind of create more powerful statements of being enough, right? Yeah. And it wasn't just I am enough. Like you always have to use that word because behind it. You have to give that oomph as to why you believe that. And so I think those two things, that video, it's phenomenal. And then I just think seeing and writing that every day, and then getting the help that I need. Like literally I was powerless and I needed help. And I had to admit that, like, even as a therapist, like I couldn't do this by myself. Right. And, you know, just getting over the fact that I needed help and I had to ask for it.
Yeah. You need the support. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, you need the support, you need some sort of, I don't know, call it community, even if it's just two people, but I mean, I think that's just no matter what. And I love that it was like, okay, one tiny step. I think sometimes it's like when we're sitting in it, you look at like this, like, oh, I'm so far down, like, and the out is like way up there. How will I ever make it? But it's like, just like one step. It's like just getting out of bed. And then you can get out of bed and maybe put some good shoes on. And then you can maybe go for a walk. And that could maybe take you a month to even get through those three little things, you know? And I love what you said about, like, you know, when you took the steps to go, like, to dive into it, that's when you found your power. And I know that I think a lot of times as women, we think if we hide it, like maybe not, oh, we'll hide it and it will go away, but maybe it's like, if we don't, the more we step away from it, we think that's our power. And I think there is something to really be like so solid about you saying that, is like, no, it's actually like sitting in the mud and the dirt and the grime and all the gross shame, guilt, terrible things of you feeling and truth and all of this. That's like, that's the only place you're going to find it. That's where you're going to find it and be able to bring it out, you know?
And I love that you said the mud word, because that's the title of the last chapter in my first book. It's called Emerging from the Mud. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about, right? And I think us as women, there's a fear, you know, there's a fear of admitting that you're struggling. You know, you don't want to look weak. You don't want to ask for help. I think society thinks that us women have to have it all together. And it's really hard to ask for help. I mean, it wasn't easy to admit that I lost. And then I had to file for bankruptcy at 38 years old. I never, you know, how did I go from making 6 figures to having to file for bankruptcy and leave my ex-husband all within like 6 months of each other? And
that's a lot. That is so much.
It was so much. It was so much. But I was just like, I had to lose everything in order for me to gain everything. Yeah. And it's still a struggle. And, you know, but I can't say that I'm happy is not the right word, but for me to say, do I wish that never happened to me? Of course, parts of it I do, but then I think, well, I might just be sitting in this 4-wall hospital, being a therapist and not giving back the way that I am now and not doing what I feel like was really intended for me in this life. And, you know, a big part of my healing journey was not, you know, closing the chapter from him. the big part of my healing was closing the chapter on the person I was when I was with him.
Yeah.
I was no longer that person. And I had no job. I had no money. I mean, I didn't get anything from the divorce. I wasn't allowed to hire an attorney. He had the attorney. I got screwed. And I had to close that chapter of who I was and grieve that person that I no longer was in order for me to be able to create this new person and this new life and these new things that I wanted to do. And that was profound for me. Like I had to say goodbye to her. I had to say goodbye to Megan, that Megan, and in order for me to create the new Megan.
Yeah. Which is so amazing. So let's talk about all the things that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I mean, you travel so much speaking and have done so much with that whole world. I love your TED Talk, and I love, you know, some of that we've touched on, but I just love the, I love when I talked with you. I think this was the last time that we spoke. And I remember saying to you, you know, I have this burning desire in me to share with women my story or, you know, this or that. And I said, I just don't know like quite how to do it. And I remember you saying, just start. And it's like, sometimes I think we over analyze like, okay, like, should I lay it all out and what, you know, and this and that. It's like, and sometimes you just have to do something.
And I saw that in you because I remember
I got it from you, sister. You told me to start, so I started.
Oh my God, I was so proud of you because I was scrolling through Facebook and I was like, wait, she has a program already? And then like your post, like you're posting more. And that's when I texted you. I was like, girl, I was like, this is amazing. And you did it, right? It's just, no matter, I was terrified when I pressed enter for my book to go live on Amazon. I was terrified, but that was my first step in doing something. What you're doing, like, it's amazing. And you took that first step. No matter what happens, if you change one person's life or inspire one person by sharing your story, that is enough.
Yeah.
You know, and you did it. And I was so proud of you. I was like, oh my gosh, because you didn't tell me you were creating a course. And then I think it was like a couple weeks later, and I was like, wait, where did this come from?
I just had it in my pocket and I was waiting for you to say, just start. And then I pulled it out, delivered it out.
So proud of you. But yes, you're a perfect example. Like you had this fear. I had this fear, but you know, we may have haters out there, you know, it is what it is, but we're going to see more love and support and encouragement than the haters. Right. And so, like I said, if whoever's watching this or listening, like everyone has a story. And I know it sounds cliche, but people need to hear your story, whatever it is. And if you just touch one life, then that's worth what you've been through. Exactly. So I'm very proud of you, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us about your books and tell us about that journey and what they're about and where we can find them.
Yes. So my first book is called You Are Enough, 5 Steps to Move from Struggle to Strength. And then that's my baby. That is just
so good. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, literally there's 5 steps.
Before I even met you in person, didn't I think? I just like,
you what?
I think I bought your book before I even met you in person.
Aw, thanks. But those 5 steps are the 5 steps that I actually went through to get to where I'm at today. And so that book was written during the most traumatic 5 months of my life. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I started speaking and just, you know, doing all of this stuff. And then the second book, people kept asking, and I'm like, I don't want to write a second book. But I felt like there were some topics in the first book that I didn't talk about, especially the topic of acceptance, because I talked so much about that with my patients. And so the second book is, oh my gosh, You Are Perfectly Imperfect, 3 Steps to Unapologetically Owning Who You Are. And that came out in 2021. So they're both bestsellers. They're both on Amazon. The first one is an audio as well. So if you like my voice, you can listen to the audiobook.
I love it.
The second one, I don't think I'm going to do an audio. That just, oh gosh, it took forever to do. But, and then in between the first and the second book, the first book just took off and I got such great responses from it. And I wanted to give back more. And so, like I said earlier, I am a huge visual coping skills fan, and just came home one day with this idea of creating visual coping cards. So here's the cards. So just for your audience, it says I am enough on the front, and then on the back it has the word because with 3 lines. And I didn't know what was going to happen with this, and I just started like handing these cards out at speaking events and just promoting them because they're free. You can go to my website and get them for free. And it just took off. So I launched it exactly 1 year after I walked away from my ex. And within the first year, I had sent cards to 22 countries in all 50 states, which means people would go to the website, order the cards. I still write the envelopes out, mail them out myself. And within that first year, people had heard from 22 countries and sent them out. And then someone came up to me and said, Megan, have you ever thought about turning this movement into a nonprofit? And I was like, no. Like, I'm a therapist. I don't want to run a business. I don't know how to do that. Yeah. But again, I just felt like God was saying, Megan, I think you should do this. So there I go. I jump head, no idea, like just feet in, just go, no clue. And so 2 years ago, the movement became a 501c3, and we are currently raising money. Myself and my board of directors are raising money to open transitional living home and emergency shelter for women and children. I'd love to also open one for men, but we're starting with women and children, called Freedom Haven. And so here in San Diego, but we have this vision of doing Freedom Havens all over. But we need to raise a lot of money to even start this process. But obviously the pandemic, kind of took a hit on fundraising and all of that. But I am still learning what it means to run a nonprofit. But we have bracelets and t-shirts. We do annual virtual run walks where people from all over the country take place and do this run walk with us. And then, so that's what I'm currently focused on right now. And then I work full-time as a therapist. Where
can we donate?
Oh, yeah. So if you go to my website, or if you go to any of my social media, there's a link on my social media. My social media is just Megan Fenyoe, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Or if you go to the movement website, IamEnoughMovement.info, you can go there and donate. I'm actually starting a campaign next month for my birthday. Any $50 donation or more, you get our limited edition I Am Enough charm bracelet. Do you have one of those?
I don't have a charm bracelet. I have a t-shirt.
You have a t-shirt?
And hello, flirt people, when you're listening and watching this, they're purple.
They're purple. I can't believe I didn't wear it. I didn't wear it.
Well, I was gonna wear mine. I actually wear it so much that it
isn't it comfortable?
I have it's like bleach spot. I don't even know how.
Okay, well, I'll have to send you another one and a bracelet. I can't believe you don't have a bracelet. I'll send you another
I can't believe I don't have a bracelet either. But yes, the I Am Enough t-shirts are purple. It's like, hello,
yes,
flirt and I Am Enough just mixed together.
It's perfect. And so any like $50 donation, you get a t-shirt, but you can also buy, or a bracelet, but you can also buy a t-shirt or a bracelet. All the money goes right to the movement. But if you go to IamEnoughMovement.info, you can get all of the merchandise. You can get your free coping cards. You can just check out what we're doing. And then my website is just my name, meganfenyoe.com. So yeah.
So I have a question, a burning question that I'm wondering how many people ask you this.
What?
Okay, I feel like it's one thing to like sit in a room with another woman and share your story. And then you're like, okay, it was just the two of us. It's like, I mean, your book is like, this is the story and it's loud. It's very loud. It's not like, it does not sugarcoat things that happened. And I mean, how many people ask you this, but here's my question is like, what does your ex think about that?
Oh, good question.
Is he trying, if you took control of your life and seeing that's got to set him on fire.
Yes. So my last name is actually still my married name. People ask all the time why I didn't go back to my maiden name. However, by the time I got divorced, I had already set up my private practice, was already doing stuff on social media. If I would have everyone here, like in California, everything, like they just know me as Fenyoe. So if I would have gone back to my maiden name, no, I would have lost up, just, I would have had to start all over, followings and all of that. And so, and it doesn't bother me. It's actually powerful to me to have my last name, because if you Google my ex-husband, all my stuff comes up. So I do have to be honest about this though. So I have a folder in my email named his first name. I don't ever say his first name, but the last contact I have had with him was February 15th, 2018. I have received, it's been over a year now, but I would receive an email a couple times a month, horrible, mean emails. Like I can't even tell you how many times he was like, you have papers coming, I'm suing you. But again, I've never said his first name. Everything I wrote in the book, I have evidence for. I made sure of it. I did, because I also, and of course I have my attorney, and I talked to my attorney, and he's like, Megan, he's like, unless you like shared medical information or something like that, like he has no leg to stand on. And of course I never got papers. It was all just, he still literally believed he could manipulate me. And he did, because there were times where I would get an email and I would just throw my phone to my roommate and be like, what did he say now? And like, but I never responded. I have never responded. Just keep the emails in a folder. I printed them out. But for the first like year and a half, and I think he bought the books and then he would, watch all my podcast episodes, because I would get messages like, you said this, and I just would have to ignore it. And, I haven't heard from him in like over a year, but I have never responded to any, and it was so hard, but it was so powerful knowing that this guy, I have hundreds of emails from him since 2018, and he would still message me knowing that I was not responding. And although it made me upset hearing what he said, it was so powerful to know that this guy still thought he had control over me, and I never responded.
Because that would be so intimidating, coming from that space and then regaining your power. And then as you're doing all these amazing things, like having him, or really anybody for that matter, just trying to like swipe your feet from underneath you and crash all of these things that you're passionate about, and all these wonderful things that you're doing for women, and for everybody, like sharing that they're enough. What was like your biggest way of how you just stood in your power and didn't go back to, like, how did you not circle back?
Believe me, there was times where I'm just like, should I be doing this? But you have to remember it. I have been very lucky, knock on wood. I have not received a lot of negativity. I've gotten emails from him, and then his two exes, like the girls, like they would message me as well, and I wouldn't respond. Yeah. But then of course they come to find out that I was real and true in what I said.
And then they put in your movement, and then you have to send them bracelets and cards.
Right. And I think it's because I had so much positivity. I was reaching people by sharing my story, and the overwhelming support and encouragement and people sharing their stories and thanking me just outweighed whatever crap I was getting from those three, and again, I've never gotten a bad message. Like I've never gotten someone messaging me on social media saying, you're a victim, you're this, I've never gotten any bad, like any backlash except from him. So I think there were times where I was very sad and just like, why is he doing this? Why doesn't he leave me alone? He's taken enough from me. But then, my best friend who I live with, she's amazing. And she would just remind me like, Megan, like, look at what you're doing. Yeah. Look at the changes that you've made in your life, and look at the lives that you are trying to impact by sharing your story. Screw him, like.
Yeah.
So I think
sometimes I feel like we can't trust our feelings,
Oh, of course not.
Like,
yeah.
You've got to remember this is a feeling, and it's not always the truth. And I think it was what I'm sure was so beneficial for you is like you're traveling, speaking, everyone's reading your book, everyone's interviewing you. It's like you're just constantly sharing your truth. So like what better way to stay in power than to like speak the truth, read the truth, like, oh, you know, it was just constant in your life. And I think we forget that. It's like, because we think we do like one time or one thing. And it's like, that can be grief that lasts forever. And it has to be constant for you to remind, to do affirmations, to always be staying in your power and actively doing things to stay there.
And that's so true, because I'm kind of known as, and I never thought of like branding myself, but this movement, the I am enough thing, was my brand. And so I'm kind of known as the I am enough girl, but I struggle. I struggle with, overthinking. I have horrible anxiety. I have limiting beliefs. I still struggle. And that's what I always tell people is, no matter how hard you like try to reprogram your mind, you can do it. And it's going to be easier. Like, so whenever I have a negative thought, my mind kind of just knows how to test the reality of that thought and kind of go through that motion, but I'm still human. And so to say that I'm never going to struggle again, and I'm never going to have limiting beliefs and anxiety, like that's just not humanly possible. Exactly. But you can learn ways to overcome that. And so that's what I look at, as the fact that like 4 years ago, I had no idea how to overcome it at that moment. I mean, I did, but I just forgot about it because I was in my grief and everything. But now it's like, I've worked so hard at reprogramming it that it's, for the most part, it's pretty instant when I have this like fleeing belief or something. It's just kind of like changes it, and because it's literally about the visual, right? Like I have all of these reminders all over, for me. And people that can say, Megan, you're catastrophizing right now. Megan, you're mind reading right now. Like, I've taught people this, like, especially my best friend, she knows, she's like, Megan, you're totally mind reading right now. Get out of your head. So it's just this process, but you can't go through life thinking that, you're never going to have these thoughts again. And you just need to have the tools to be able to overcome them so they don't keep you stuck.
Yeah. What's your, for those women that have gone through the same situation as you, a similar situation, or even just, have never gained their power or thought that they were enough, even if they haven't gone through the situation that you have, what's your number one, just kind of like shout out to them your number one thing that you can leave with them today, for them listening to your.
There's so many like little nuggets, but I think it kind of goes back to what we just said, like taking that first step. So if you really struggle with, because we've all at one point or another have had that thought that we're not good enough, whether it comes to relationships, career, health issues, whatever, right? We've all had that thought. But if you have a resounding negative thought, and it may not be, I'm not good enough, it may be, I'm not worthy, whatever it is, you need to do the work, right? So whether that means finding a support person, a therapist, a coach, whatever, you have to learn the skills to be able to overcome that, because that is what's keeping you stuck. You have 100% control over your actions, thoughts, and behaviors. No one can take that from you. That is your control. And you can learn to overcome these limiting beliefs. It does take work. Someone's not going to do it for you. You have to truly believe in yourself and whatever that is. So it might be visual coping skills. It might be a support group. It might be a therapist. I have so many resources on my website as well, but just taking that first step, and to always be bold and be brave and be unapologetically you. Like that's it. Like people are going to love you or they're going to hate you. But that's okay, right? And the more that you are you and you're doing the work, the right people, the right things are going to come into your life. But the more you stay stuck in that negative mindset, that's where you're going to stay.
Yeah, I love all that. Should we end with saying like, I am enough because I'm thinking of one in my head already.
Yes.
Do you want me to go first or second?
Yes, I want you to, well, yes, go first. Go first. Okay. I am enough because
I am doing my best and it's perfect.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So do you remember that at the end of the podcast, we would ask people like, what is your favorite mantra? And then it was like, and then most people would say like, I'm enough or what, I don't know what it was, but I love that. You are taking the right steps and you're doing what makes you happy right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's been a little bit of my mantra lately. Just, yeah, I am enough because I'm doing my best and it's perfect. It's perfect right where I am.
Yep.
How much I'm doing and what I'm doing. It's my best always and it's perfect.
Amazing. And isn't it more powerful because you use the word because instead of just saying I am enough?
Yeah, it totally is. It totally
And
is.
to add to that, just real quick, you always have to put a period at the end of that affirmation because a period ends a sentence. So in your mind, when you say that, always like imagine that period, because guess what happens? I am enough because I got out of bed this morning, but.
Oh yeah. It's like, boom, period, solidify.
Period, stop.
I love that.
So mine is I am enough because I unapologetically own who I am.
I love that.
So that's what I started at ground zero because I got out of bed this morning and now here I am. This is me. Yeah. Love me or hate me. It is what it is.
What a beautiful journey. What an amazing story. Like I said before, I'm honored to know you and have heard your story, read your books, heard you on podcasts, hear your TED Talk, all the things. And I'm going to make sure I share that with everybody that's listening to this because I know it impacted me. So you've already, not that you haven't impacted other lives, but you've impacted me. So your cup should be so full of what you've done for me in my life and my story. And I'm proud of you. I'm so honored to be able to see this whole journey of everything that's happening. It's so cool. You're doing amazing.
You're amazing.
For so many women everywhere.
And you have such an incredible story as well. And I'm so proud of you for taking this step. And I'm so honored to be part of your journey and to see where this takes you. Because not a lot of people take that first step. And I'm always here for you. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for your time today. I can't wait to share this with all the people everywhere. And I'll make sure that we can all reach out to you. And I need to get some of your cards in the studio. I don't know why I don't have them.
Yes. We'll chat because I'm going to get you some stuff too, some swag.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Bye.